number. They mocked the fragile human girl, until the Apex commander curtsied before her. The transport shuttle's doors opened with a hiss, and Hana Kim stepped onto the docking bay of the Galactic Coalition Academy. She clutched her small bag tighter as she looked around at the massive space station that would be her home for the next year. Everything here was built for beings much larger than herself. The doorways stretched 3 meters high. The corridors were wide enough to fit 5 of her standing side by side. Even the air felt different, processed and recycled through systems designed for 100 different species. She was small, even by human standards. At barely 160 centimeters tall, and weighing perhaps 50 kilograms, Hana looked like a child among the giants that filled the academy. Around her, alien cadets moved with confidence and power. A Vecthar warrior strode past, his 4 arms carrying equipment that would take 3 humans to lift. His scaled skin gleamed under the station lights, purple and black patterns marking him as a member of the warrior caste. He glanced down at Hana and snorted. A sound like grinding rocks. Near the processing station, a group of Draknor cadets laughed among themselves. They stood over 2.5 meters tall, their bodies covered in thick, armored hide that could stop most conventional weapons. One of them, a female with red markings across her face, pointed at Hana and said something in her native tongue. The others laughed harder. Hana kept her eyes down and walked toward the registration desk. The processing officer was a lumen, a being made of living crystal that refracted light into rainbow patterns. It studied Hana with multifaceted eyes that saw in spectrums humans could not imagine. Name and planet of origin, it said in perfect galactic common. Hana Kim, Earth. Sector 7. Her voice was quiet, but steady. The lumen's crystalline fingers moved across a holographic display. You are assigned to Squad Theta 7. Barracks Level 12. Room 47. Your roommate has already arrived. Report to the Grand Hall for orientation in 2 standard hours. It paused, its eyes focusing on her in a way that felt almost like pity. Good luck, human. You will need it. Hana found her room after getting lost twice in corridors that all looked the same. The door slid open to reveal a space clearly designed for larger beings. The beds were massive slabs that would fit 3 of her comfortably. Storage lockers stood as tall as she was, and sitting on one of the beds was her roommate. The Draknor female was the same one who had laughed at her in the docking bay. Up close, she was even more intimidating. Her muscles rippled under her armored skin. Her hands could probably crush Hana's skull without effort. She looked up as Hana entered, and her expression shifted from amusement to something that might have been concern. So you are the human they assigned to me, the Draknor said. Her voice was deep and rough. My name is Thexara. I am from the warrior moon of Draknus Prime. She stood, and Hana had to crane her neck to meet her eyes. You are very small. Are all humans this fragile? Most are bigger than me, Hana admitted, setting her bag on the empty bed. But, compared to your people, yes, we are fragile. Thexara made a sound like a sigh. I requested a warrior roommate, someone who could match me in training. Instead, they give me someone I will have to protect. She turned away. Try not to die during basic exercises. It would reflect poorly on me. The orientation in the Grand Hall was worse than Hana had imagined. 300 cadets from 70 different species filled the massive chamber. Hana was the only human. As the instructors spoke about the Academy's proud history and brutal training regimen, she felt hundreds of eyes on her. Whispers spread through the crowd like ripples on water. Is that really a human? Earth must be desperate if that is their champion. She will not last a week. The head instructor, Commander Velshara, was a Vecthar with silver scales and 6 arms. She explained that cadets would be tested on combat, strategy, survival, and teamwork. Only the best would graduate to serve in the coalition military. The rest would be sent home in shame. Her eyes found Hana in the crowd, and for a moment, something unreadable crossed her face. You have been divided into squads of 8, Velshera continued. These warriors will be your family, your support, and your competition. Squad assignments are final. You will succeed together or fail together. When Squad Theta 7 gathered after the orientation, Hana met her squad mates. Besides Thexara, there were 6 others. Gralmoth was a massive Vecthar male with black scales and an attitude that matched his size. He looked at Hana with open disgust. "This is the 8th member?" he demanded. "Command has cursed us. We cannot compete with a human weakling holding us back." "Maybe she has hidden talents," offered Rix, a smaller alien with green skin and too many eyes. "What talents could she possibly have?" Gralmoth shot back. "Look at her. 1 hit, and she breaks. 1 challenge, and she fails. Earth has sent us a liability." Hana said nothing. She had learned long ago that words meant little. Action was all that mattered. But inside, something cold and hard settled in her chest. She would prove them wrong. She had to. The first physical assessment came the next morning. Cadets were tested on strength, speed, endurance, and combat reflexes. Hana scored in the bottom, 5% of all categories. She could not lift the standard weapons. She could not run as fast as beings with 4 legs. She could not take hits that barely bruised other species. The instructors recorded her scores with grim expressions. Squad Theta 7 ranked dead last out of 40 squads. In the mess hall that evening, other squads openly mocked them. Squad Alpha 2, the top performers, made sure everyone could hear their comments. Theta 7, the charity squad, their leader, Krosnak, announced. He was a Drachnor even larger than Thexara, with black markings that indicated he came from a noble warrior family. They let anyone into the academy now, even fragile little humans who break if you breathe on them wrong. Gralmoth stood abruptly, his 4 fists clenched. "You mock us because of 1 member. Challenge me directly, Krosnak, and we will see who breaks. Why would I waste my time?" Krosnak laughed. "Defeating you means nothing when everyone knows your squad is worthless. You have a human. You have already lost." Hana kept eating her meal, her face expressionless. But her grip on the utensil was tight enough to make her knuckles white. That night, after Thexara had gone to sleep, Hana sat alone in the dark room with her datapad. The screen illuminated her face with a pale blue glow as she studied files that were locked behind multiple layers of encryption. Combat records, battle analyses, strategic reports, all of them featuring the same name. Commander Jiwoo Baek. Known throughout the galaxy as the Apex Commander, Hana's fingers traced the scar on her left wrist, a thin white line that curved like a crescent moon. In the darkness, it seemed to glow faintly, though that might have been a trick of the light. She whispered words too quiet for anyone to hear, a promise made long ago. "I will not fail. Not here. Not ever." Outside her window, the stars turned slowly as the Academy station rotated through space. Somewhere, out there, in the vast darkness between worlds, the Apex Commander was watching, waiting, testing her in ways these cadets could not imagine. Hana closed the datapad and lay back on her bed. Tomorrow would bring more mockery, more challenges, more pain. But she had endured worse. Much worse. These aliens thought her fragile, thought her weak. They would learn the truth soon enough. She closed her eyes and let sleep take her, dreaming of fire and blood, and the day everything had changed. They mocked the fragile human girl, until the Apex Commander curtsied before her. 3 weeks passed like a slow torture. Every morning began with physical training that left Hana bruised and exhausted. Every afternoon brought tactical simulations where Squad Theta 7 consistently ranked at the bottom. Every evening, the mess hall filled with laughter at their expense. The mockery had become routine, almost boring in its predictability. Almost. Hana adapted as best she could. She learned to grip the oversized weapons differently, using leverage instead of raw strength. She memorized the movement patterns of every species in her squad, finding ways to support them that did not require her to be stronger or faster. She studied constantly, reading everything she could about alien combat styles and weaknesses, but none of it seemed to matter. Gralmoth had stopped speaking to her entirely. He would not even look at her during training exercises. The other squad members were polite but distant, as if they had already accepted their fate as the Academy's failures. Only Thexara sometimes tried to help, though her assistance came wrapped in layers of pity that stung worse than contempt. "You are trying hard," Thexara said one evening as they cleaned their gear. "I see this. But trying is not the same as succeeding. Perhaps Earth made a mistake sending you here." "Perhaps," Hana replied quietly, wiping down a training blade that was far too large for her hands. "There is no shame in going home," Thexara continued. "Better to leave with dignity than to be carried out on a medical stretcher. The training only gets harder from here. Thank you for watching. There is no shame in going home. The training only gets harder from here." Hana said nothing. What could she say? That she had nowhere to go home to? That giving up was not an option? Had never been an option? That every insult and every failure was part of a test she had agreed to endure? The incident happened on a Tuesday, which Hana only knew because the station's computer systems ran on a standardized calendar. She was eating alone in the mess hall, as usual, when Crossnack and 3 other members of Squad Alpha 2 approached her table. They moved with the casual confidence of predators who knew they had already won. "Human," Crossnack said, his deep voice carrying across the room. Other cadets stopped eating to watch. "I have a proposition for you." Hana looked up at him, her expression neutral. "What proposition?" "I challenge you to a sanctioned duel. You and me, in the combat arena, tomorrow at midday. Official rules, with instructors as witnesses." He smiled, showing teeth designed for tearing flesh. "When I defeat you, you will withdraw from the Academy and return to your weak little planet. Squad Theta 7 will finally have a chance to succeed without you holding them back." The mess hall erupted in excited whispers. Sanctioned duels were legal under Academy rules, a way to settle disputes that might otherwise lead to violence in the barracks. They were brutal and public, and the loser often ended up in the medical bay for days. Hana had seen 2 duels since arriving. Both had been between species of roughly equal strength. This would be a massacre. "And if I win?" Hana asked quietly. Crossnack laughed, and half the mess hall laughed with him. "If you win, which you will not, I will publicly apologize to you and your squad. I will admit that humans are worthy of respect." His eyes glittered with cruel amusement. "But we both know that will never happen." Hana stood up, and despite being less than half his height, she met his eyes without flinching. "I accept your challenge." The mess hall exploded in noise. Cadets shouted and cheered, already placing bets on how quickly Crossnack would destroy the fragile human. Hana walked out without another word, leaving her half-eaten meal behind. Thexara found her later in their room, pacing back and forth. "What have you done?" the Draknor demanded. "Crossnack is one of the strongest fighters in the entire Academy. He has won 7 sanctioned duels." "7? And you are—" She stopped, struggling for words. "Small, weak, fragile?" Hana supplied. "I know what I am, Thexara. Then why did you accept?" "This is not bravery, Hana. This is suicide, because I am tired," Hana said softly. "Tired of the mockery. Tired of being everyone's excuse for failure. Tired of hiding." She turned to face her roommate. "If I am going to fail, I might as well fail spectacularly." Word of the duel spread through the Academy like wildfire. By the next morning, everyone knew. Instructors discussed it in low voices, debating whether to cancel the match before someone got seriously hurt. But the rules were clear, and both participants had agreed. The duel would proceed. At noon, the combat arena was packed. Cadets filled every viewing platform, pressed against the transparent barriers that kept them safe from the fighting below. Hana saw members of Squad Theta 7 inches the crowd, their faces a mixture of concern and resignation. Growlmoth had not come. Perhaps he could not bear to watch. The arena was a circular space, 50 meters across, with reinforced floors and walls designed to withstand incredible punishment. Medical teams waited on standby, their equipment ready for the injuries that were certain to come. Commander Velshera stood at the center, her 6 arms crossed. Combatants, step forward. Crossnack entered to cheers and applause. He wore minimal armor, confident enough in his natural hide that he needed little protection. His muscles rippled as he moved, each step a demonstration of power. He raised his arms to the crowd, basking in their adoration. Hana entered in silence. She wore the standard training suit, which hung loose on her small frame. She carried no weapons. The contrast between the two fighters was almost comical. The rules are simple, Velshera announced. Fight until one combatant yields, is unable to continue, or is defeated by technical knockout. Lethal force is prohibited. Medical teams will intervene if necessary. She looked at each fighter in turn. Do you both understand and accept these terms? I accept, Crossnock said, grinning. I accept, Hana said quietly. Then begin. Velshera stepped back, and the arena activated its shields. Crossnack wasted no time. He charged forward with a speed that seemed impossible for someone his size. His fist swung toward Hana's head with enough force to shatter concrete. Hana moved. Not away, but to the side, just barely enough to let the fist pass centimeters from her face. The wind of its passage ruffled her hair. Crossnack's momentum carried him forward, and he had to plant his feet to avoid crashing into the arena wall. The crowd gasped. It was such a small thing, a simple dodge, but none of them had expected the human to even react in time. Crossnack turned with a snarl and attacked again, this time with a combination of strikes from both fists. Hana dodged each one, her movements minimal and precise. She did not try to block or counter. She simply was not where the attacks landed. Stop running! Crossnock roared, frustrated. He changed tactics, using his longer reach to try to corner her. For 2 minutes, the pattern continued. Crossnock attacked with increasing fury. Hana dodged with increasing calm, but she could not dodge forever. Eventually, a backhand caught her across the ribs and sent her flying. Hana hit the arena floor hard and rolled, coming up with blood streaming from her nose. The crowd cheered, sensing the end was near. She stood slowly, her hand pressed against her ribs where the impact had left a massive bruise. Crossnock stalked toward her, ready to finish it. You lasted longer than I expected, he said. But this ends. Now. He lunged forward, both arms reaching to grab her and crush her in a hold she could never escape. And that was when everything changed. Hana moved again, but this time it was different. Her footwork was not just evasive, but purposeful. She stepped inside his guard, too close for him to grab her properly. Her hand struck his inner elbow, hitting a nerve cluster that made his right arm go numb. Before he could react, she had moved to his side and kicked the back of his knee. Crossnock stumbled, off balance for the first time. Hana's palm struck his neck. Another precise hit to a neural pressure point. Then her elbow to his kidney. Her knee to his thigh. Each strike was perfectly placed, hitting weak points that existed on every Draknor body. None of the strikes would have mattered if she had hit armor or thick muscle. But she was not hitting those places. She was hitting the gaps, the soft spots, the vulnerable clusters of nerves that even armored species could not fully protect. Crossnack roared and spun, trying to catch her, but his movements were already slower, his right arm hanging uselessly. Hana was a blur now, moving with a grace and precision that seemed impossible. Another strike to his neck, a sweep to his already weakened leg. The massive Draknor dropped to one knee, gasping. The arena had gone completely silent. Hana stood before him, her hand raised for a final strike to his temple that would end the fight. Blood still dripped from her nose, and her ribs screamed in pain, but her eyes were cold and focused. "Yield," she said quietly. Krosnak stared at her in disbelief. Then, slowly, he lowered his head. "I yield." The arena exploded in chaos. Cadets shouted and argued, unable to believe what they had just witnessed. Instructors leaned forward in their seats, analyzing every movement. Medical teams rushed to both fighters. Hana walked out of the arena without a word, leaving Krosnak kneeling in the center, defeated by the fragile human girl he had meant to destroy. That night, a message appeared on Hana's datapad. It was encrypted with codes that should not exist in Academy systems. The message was simple: "Maintain your cover. She is watching." Hana read it, then deleted it, and lay back on her bed, staring at the ceiling. Her ribs hurt with every breath. Her face was swollen and bruised, but inside, she felt something she had not felt in weeks: relief. The test was working. They mocked the fragile human girl, until the Apex commander curtsied before her. The morning after the duel, Hana woke to find her room empty. Thexara had left early, which was unusual. The Dragnor usually slept late on rest days, her massive body needing extra recovery time from the brutal training regimen. Hana dressed slowly, each movement sending sharp pains through her bruised ribs. The medical team had treated her injuries, but healing took time, even with advanced technology. When she entered the mess hall for breakfast, conversations stopped. Hundreds of eyes turned toward her. But the expressions had changed. The mockery was gone, replaced by confusion, suspicion, and something that might have been respect. Hana got her food and found an empty table. Same as always. But this time, she was not alone for long. Rix, the green-skinned member of Squad Theta 7, sat down across from her. "That was impressive yesterday," he said carefully. "Where did you learn to fight like that?" "I trained," Hana said simply, focusing on her food. "But human records show you have no formal combat training. Earth's military database lists you as a civilian volunteer." Rix's many eyes blinked in sequence. How does a civilian volunteer defeat one of the strongest fighters in the Academy? Before Hana could answer, 2 more squad members joined them, then another. Soon the entire table was filled with Theta 7, all except Growlmoth, who ate alone on the far side of the hall, his expression dark. "We need to talk about what happened," Thexara said quietly. "Not as squad mates, but as warriors. You have been hiding your abilities." "Why?" Hana set down her fork and looked at each of them in turn. "Would you have learned anything if I had dominated from the start? Would any of you have tried to improve if the human had made you all look weak on day 1? So this was a lesson?" Rix asked, confused. "No, this was a test. For me, not for you." Hana stood up. Her food barely touched. "Excuse me. I need to rest." She left them staring after her, questions multiplying in her wake. The challenges started 3 days later. Other cadets, emboldened by Krosnak's defeat, or determined to prove it was a fluke, began requesting sanctioned duels with Hana. The first was a Vekthar named Dral Khan, who specialized in wrestling. He was certain that if he could get his 4 arms around the small human, the fight would end instantly. It ended in 90 seconds. Hana used his own momentum and weight against him, redirecting his grappling attempts and striking nerve clusters until he could not feel his limbs. He yielded, stunned. The second challenger was a female lumen named Praxis, whose crystalline body could refract light to create blinding flashes during combat. She lasted 2 minutes before Hana, fighting with her eyes closed and relying on sound and air movement, struck the precise frequency that shattered Praxis's combat form, forcing her to yield before she cracked. The third, fourth, and fifth challengers all fell the same way. Different species, different fighting styles, but the same result. Hana never used excessive force. She never showed anger or pride. She simply fought with a cold, technical precision that left spectators speechless. Instructors began pulling her aside after training sessions, asking questions about her background, her training, her purpose at the academy. Hana gave them the same answers each time. She was a civilian volunteer from Earth. She had basic self-defense training. She learned quickly. Nothing more. But Commander Velshera was not convinced. The Vekthar instructor watched Hana with increasing intensity during every exercise. After one particularly brutal combat simulation, she called Hana to her office. "I have been a warrior for 40 years, Velshera said, her 6 arms folded across her chest. "I have trained thousands of cadets from hundreds of species. I know the difference between someone who learns quickly and someone who has already been taught by a master." She leaned forward. "Your techniques are too refined, too specific. Those are not the moves of a civilian volunteer. Those are assassination techniques. Black operations tactics. Where did you really learn to fight?" Hana met her gaze steadily. "I learned from someone who wanted me to survive. Who? I cannot say. Cannot or will not. Both." Velshara's scales rippled with frustration. But she dismissed Hana without further questions. The instructors could demand many things, but they could not force cadets to reveal personal history beyond what was required for security clearance. Meanwhile, Thexara had taken it upon herself to investigate. Late at night, while she thought Hana was sleeping, the Draknor accessed the Academy's database through her personal terminal. She searched Earth military records, Coalition personnel files, anything that might explain her strange roommate. What she found only deepened the mystery. Hana's file was oddly sparse. Born in a colony on Earth's moon, parents deceased when she was 6, raised in a military district under guardianship of Coalition authorities. No living relatives listed, no combat training recorded. But there was one detail that stood out. Hana's application to the Academy had been personally sponsored by someone whose identity was classified at the highest levels of Coalition security. Thexara had never seen a classification that high before. Whatever name was hidden behind those black bars, it belonged to someone with incredible power and influence. "Who are you really?" Thexara whispered, looking across the dark room at Hana's sleeping form. She did not know that Hana was awake, had been awake the entire time, and had allowed Thexara to find exactly what she was meant to find. The announcement came during morning assembly. Commander Velshara stood before the gathered cadets, with an expression that mixed anticipation and concern. "Today marks the midpoint of your training," she announced. "You will now face the evaluation that separates those who belong in the Coalition military from those who do not." The breach. The entire assembly hall seemed to inhale as one. Every cadet knew about the breach. It was the Academy's most difficult simulation. A scenario where defending forces had to hold a colony station against an overwhelming Void Swarm invasion. The Void Swarm were a hive mind species of insectoid creatures that moved in massive coordinated groups. In the simulation, they were relentless, adaptable, and deadly. "Each squad will defend a sector of the station," Velshara continued. "You will face realistic combat conditions, including pain simulators and injury protocols. Medical teams will monitor your vital signs, but understand this: cadets have been permanently injured in this simulation. Some have died." She paused. "If you cannot handle the breach, you cannot handle real combat." Dismissed. Squad Theta 7 gathered in their preparation room, tension thick in the air. They had 3 hours before their simulation run. Growlmoth finally broke his weeks of silence. "We have the eastern sector," he said, studying the tactical display. "It is the most exposed position. Command expects us to fail. They are punishing us," another squad member muttered. "Because of her." Eyes turned to Hana. "No," Thexara said firmly. "They are testing us because we have become interesting. Hana's victories have drawn attention. Now they want to see if the rest of us are worthy of that attention." Hana studied the tactical map in silence. The eastern sector was indeed the worst assignment. It had multiple breach points, limited cover, and direct exposure to the primary attack vector. Any squad would struggle to defend it. For Squad Theta 7, it should be impossible. "We need a strategy," Rick said. "We cannot just shoot and hope." They spent the next 2 hours planning. For the first time, the squad worked together properly, combining their different abilities into a cohesive defense. Hana contributed to the discussion but did not dominate it. She had played her role as the squad liability. Now she would play a new role. But carefully, gradually. Not yet time to reveal everything. The simulation began with sirens and flashing red lights. Squad Theta 7 took their positions in the eastern sector. Weapons ready. The void swarm came like a black tide, thousands of simulated creatures pouring through breaches in the station hull. They moved with insect efficiency, coordinating their attacks in ways that seemed impossible for individual beings. The first wave hit Squad Theta 7's position like a hammer. Growlmoth's 4 arms worked his heavy weapons with brutal efficiency, cutting down dozens of swarm units. Thexara anchored the defensive line, her armored body absorbing damage that would have killed lighter species. Rix coordinated from behind cover, directing fire to critical points. And Hana moved through the chaos like smoke, her smaller size allowing her to dodge between swarm units, her precise strikes destroying them with minimal effort. She never stayed in one place, never presented a clear target, and always seemed to be exactly where the squad needed support. For 15 minutes, they held. Then, the second wave arrived, twice as large as the first. Squad members started taking serious hits. One went down with simulated injuries that removed him from the fight. Then another. The swarm adapted to their tactics, finding weaknesses, exploiting gaps. A breach opened directly behind their position. Swarm units poured through, cutting the squad in half. Thexara turned to face them, roaring a challenge. But there were too many. A simulated blade caught her across the back, and she went down, her armor cracked and sparking. "Thexara!" Hana shouted, moving toward her fallen roommate. Growlmoth tried to cover the retreat, but he was overwhelmed. His weapons clicked empty, and simulated swarm claws tore into his armor. He fell, cursing. Within seconds, only Hana remained standing, surrounded by hundreds of swarm units. The simulation should have ended there. The squad had failed. But Hana did not stop moving. What happened next would be analyzed by instructors for weeks. Hana became something else, something the other cadets had never seen. She moved through the swarm like death itself. Every movement efficient. Every strike lethal. She used their own bodies as shields, their formations as traps, their coordination against them. She was not fighting harder. She was fighting perfectly. Every technique she had hidden for weeks emerged in a fluid display of martial mastery that seemed impossible for a human. Seemed impossible for anyone. These were not the skills of a self-defense student. These were the abilities of someone trained by the best warrior in the galaxy. The simulation directors watched in shock as one human cadet single-handedly destroyed the entire swarm force in her sector. When the last unit fell and the simulation ended, Hana stood alone among hundreds of deactivated enemies, her chest heaving, her training suit torn and bloody from simulated injuries. The observation room erupted in chaos. Instructors shouted conflicting orders. Commander Velshara stared at the tactical replay, watching it again and again, her 6 arms trembling slightly. "Flag her file," she said quietly. "Send it to Coalition Command, with priority clearance. Someone needs to explain what that human really is." In the simulation chamber, Hana helped her squad members to their feet, checking their injuries. Thexara stared at her with wide eyes. "That was not luck," the Draknor whispered. "That was not anything we have been taught here." "Hana, who trained you?" Hana met her eyes and said nothing. But in that silence, Thexara understood that some questions had answers too dangerous to speak aloud. 3 days later, an encrypted message reached Commander Velshara's personal terminal. It contained only a ship's designation and an arrival time. When Velshara decoded the designation and saw which ship was coming, she sat down heavily, all 6 arms going limp. The Eternal Vigil, flagship of the Apex Commander herself, would arrive at the Academy in 72 hours. Whatever secrets Hana Kim was hiding, they were about to be revealed. They mocked the fragile human girl, until the Apex Commander curtsied before her. The Academy changed in the 72 hours before the Eternal Vigil arrived. Instructors moved with tension in every step. Security protocols doubled, then tripled. Cadets whispered in corners, trying to understand why the most feared warship in the Coalition fleet was coming to what should have been a routine training station. Commander Velshara called Hana to her office on the morning of the second day. The Vekthar's scales had lost some of their shine, and her 6 arms moved restlessly. I have sent 3 requests to Coalition Command, asking why the Apex Commander is coming here, Velshara said without preamble. All 3 requests have been denied with highest-level security clearance. So I will ask you directly, Cadet Kim. Why is she coming? Hana stood at attention, her face expressionless. I do not know, Commander. You are lying. Yes, Commander. Velshara's scales rippled with frustration, but also something that might have been respect. At least the human did not insult her intelligence by pretending ignorance. Do you understand what it means that she is coming here? The Apex Commander does not make social visits. She does not inspect training facilities. When she appears, it is because something is wrong or because someone is about to die. I understand, Commander. Are you in danger, Cadet Kim? Hana met her eyes steadily. No more than I have been since I arrived. Velshara dismissed her. But as Hana reached the door, the instructor spoke again. For what it is worth, you have impressed me. Whatever happens when that ship arrives, know that you earned your place here through your own skill. She paused. Even if that skill was never yours to begin with. Hana said nothing as she left. The rumors spread faster than the truth ever could. Some cadets whispered that Hana was a spy, that the Apex Commander was coming to arrest her for infiltrating the Academy under false pretenses. Others claimed she was a secret weapon, a human super soldier program that had gone wrong. The wildest rumors suggested she was not human at all, but some other species wearing a human disguise. Squad Theta 7 gathered in their common room that evening. Growlmoth had finally rejoined them after weeks of self-imposed isolation. The Vekthar looked at Hana with an expression she could not quite read. I owe you an apology, he said stiffly. I judged you weak and made our squad weaker for it. What you did in the breach simulation. He stopped, struggling for words. I have never seen anything like it. You fought well too, Hana said quietly. I fought adequately. You fought like legends fight. Growlmoth's 4 fists clenched. But now this ship comes, and everyone says it is because of you. So I will ask plainly, should we be preparing to defend you or to run from you? Before Hana could answer, the station's alert system activated. A calm female voice echoed through every corridor and room. All personnel report to the Grand Hall immediately. All cadets and instructors to the Grand Hall. This is not a drill. The walk to the Grand Hall felt like marching to execution. 300 cadets and 50 instructors filled the massive chamber, standing in perfect formation. Hana took her place with Squad Theta 7, aware of hundreds of eyes watching her. Even now, even after everything, they still expected her to be at the center of whatever was about to happen. Commander Velshara stood at the front of the assembly, her 6 arms clasped behind her back. She looked like she had not slept in days. The Eternal Vigil has docked with this station. Its commander will be arriving in the Grand Hall momentarily. All personnel will stand at attention and maintain absolute silence. Any breach of protocol will result in immediate disciplinary action. The massive doors at the far end of the hall began to open. They moved slowly, silently, revealing the corridor beyond. And through that corridor walked a figure that made every being in the room straighten instinctively. Commander Jiwoo Baek was tall for a human, standing nearly 180 centimeters. She wore the black and silver uniform of Coalition Special Operations, with rank insignia that placed her above most planetary governors. Her dark hair was pulled back in a severe style that emphasized the sharp angles of her face. But it was her eyes that truly captured attention, cold, calculating, and utterly unafraid. She moved with a predator's grace, each step deliberate and controlled. Behind her came an honor guard of 6 soldiers, each one a veteran of campaigns that had become legends. They flanked her in perfect formation, their weapons held at ceremonial rest but ready to become lethal in a heartbeat. The grand hall, which usually echoed with the sounds of hundreds of beings breathing, moving, existing, had become absolutely silent. Even the Dragnor, who feared nothing, seemed to shrink slightly as the apex commander passed. Jiwoo Baek's reputation preceded her like a shockwave. She had ended the Vekthar civil war single-handedly by challenging their clan leaders to honorable combat and defeating all 7 in one day. She had held the breach at Callisto for 16 hours against an invasion force that should have overrun her position in minutes. She had infiltrated the Syndicate's homeworld, destroyed their leadership, and walked out without a scratch. Every species in the coalition had stories about her, and every story ended the same way, with her enemies broken and her allies in awe. She stopped at the center of the grand hall, her eyes scanning the assembled cadets with the same intensity a hawk might use to examine prey. When she spoke, her voice carried to every corner of the massive chamber without needing amplification. "I am Commander Jiwoo Baek, Apex Commander of Coalition Special Operations, First Blade of the Council, and Protector of the Outer Territories." The titles rolled out like thunder. "I have come to this academy to address a matter of personal significance." She began walking again, moving through the rows of cadets. Hundreds of warriors parted before her, creating a path without conscious thought. Her eyes scanned faces, seeming to evaluate each cadet in a single glance. And then, her gaze locked onto one specific face in the crowd. Hana stood perfectly still as the Apex commander approached Squad Theta 7. Every instinct screamed at her to move, to react, to do something. But she remained frozen, at attention. Around her, her squadmates had gone rigid, with tension. Jiwoo Baek stopped directly in front of Hana. The height difference was significant. The Apex commander towered over the small cadet. For a long moment, neither spoke. The entire grand hall held its breath. Then Commander Jiwoo Baek did something no one had ever seen her do. Something that violated every expectation of her character and reputation. She took one step back, placed her right hand over her heart, and curtsied. It was a deep, formal bow, the kind given only to royalty or to someone who had earned absolute respect and loyalty. The grand hall erupted in shocked gasps and whispers that grew into a roar of confusion. Instructors leaned forward, unable to believe what they were seeing. Cadets turned to each other, seeking explanation for something that should be impossible. The Apex commander, who had never bowed to anyone, was bowing to the small human girl they had all mocked and dismissed. Velshara's voice cut through the chaos. "Silence. Maintain discipline." The noise died slowly, reluctantly, but the confusion remained on every face. Jiwoo Baek straightened, her eyes never leaving Hana's face. When she spoke again, her voice carried a warmth that seemed alien, coming from someone known for being cold as deep space. "Cadets and instructors of the Galactic Coalition Academy," she said, turning to address the crowd. "You stand in the presence of Hana Kim, last daughter of the Broken Moon clan. She is the child I swore a blood oath to protect. She is the sister I chose, when biology gave me none. She is the only person alive, who I call family, without reservation or condition." The grand hall had gone silent again. But this time, it was the silence of shock so profound that breathing seemed inappropriate. Hana's face had gone pale, but she maintained her composure. "Some of you have mocked her," Jiwoo continued, and now her voice carried an edge that could cut steel. "You looked at her small frame and called her weak. You saw her human heritage and called her fragile. You judged her by appearances and found her lacking." She paused, letting the weight of those words settle. In doing so, you dishonored not just her, but yourselves, your training, and everything this academy stands for. Growlmoth had gone absolutely still, his forearms rigid at his sides. Crossnack, standing with Squad Alpha 2, looked like he wanted to sink through the floor. Across the grand hall, cadets who had laughed and pointed and challenged began to understand the magnitude of their mistake. But this is not why I came here, Jiwoo said, her tone shifting. I came because Hana Kim asked me for something difficult. She asked me to let her prove herself, without my shadow hanging over her. She asked to be judged as Hana Kim, cadet, not as Hana Kim, sister of the Apex Commander. She turned back to Hana, and something like pride flickered across her usually expressionless face. She asked me to let her fall if she was going to fall, to let her fail if she was going to fail, and to only intervene if her life was truly in danger. Jiwoo's hand moved to rest on Hana's shoulder, a gesture of affection so casual and yet so profound that several cadets actually took steps backward in shock. She has not failed, Jiwoo said simply. She has thrived. She has endured mockery and abuse with dignity. She has protected squadmates who did not deserve her protection. She has demonstrated skill and restraint in equal measure. Her eyes swept the crowd. Any who have dishonored her have dishonored me. Any who wish to challenge this will face me in the combat arena tomorrow at dawn. Form a line. The grand hall remained silent. Not a single cadet moved. Not a single instructor spoke. The idea of challenging the Apex Commander was not bravery, it was suicide. I thought not, Jiwoo said with grim satisfaction. She turned back to Hana, and for just a moment, the fearsome commander's expression softened into something almost human. You did well, little sister. Better than I expected. Hana's composure finally cracked. I tried, she whispered. Quiet enough that only Jiwoo could hear. I know. Jiwoo pulled her into a brief embrace, then released her, and stepped back, her commander's mask sliding back into place. But this is not the end of your test. It is only the beginning. She addressed the grand hall once more. Training will continue as normal. Anyone who fails to treat Cadet Kim with the respect due a warrior will answer to me personally. Commander Velshara, you have your orders. Yes, Apex Commander. Velshara managed, still looking shell-shocked. Jiwoo Baek and her honor guard left the grand hall as silently as they had arrived. The doors closed behind them with a final, resonant boom. For several long seconds, no one moved. Then, all at once, the grand hall exploded into frantic conversation. Hana stood at the center of it all, aware of hundreds of stares, hundreds of re-evaluations, hundreds of people trying to reconstruct their understanding of who she really was. Thexara grabbed her arm, eyes wide. Your sister is the Apex Commander, she whispered. The Apex Commander. And you never said anything. I was not supposed to, Hana replied quietly. But everyone mocked you. Everyone challenged you. We treated you like... Thexara stopped, horror dawning. And I proved I was something. Hana gently freed her arm. That was the point. Around them, Squad Theta 7 gathered close, forming a protective circle without conscious thought. Growlmoth's expression had shifted from shock to something that might have been shame. I called you weak, he said hoarsely. I said you would get real warriors killed. You were wrong, Hana said simply. Across the grand hall, other squads whispered and pointed. Some cadets looked ashamed. Others looked afraid. A few looked angry, as if Hana had somehow cheated by hiding her connection to the most powerful warrior in the galaxy. Hana ignored them all. She had passed one test, but Jiwoo's final words echoed in her mind. This was only the beginning. Whatever came next would be even harder. She touched the scar on her wrist, feeling it pulse with warmth, and wondered what her sister had planned for her next. They mocked the fragile human girl, until the Apex Commander, Curtsied, before her. Commander Velshara summoned Hana to her office at dawn the next morning. The Vekthar instructor looked like she had not slept at all, her 6 arms moving restlessly through data files projected in holographic light above her desk. When Hana entered, Velshara gestured for her to sit. "I have spent the entire night reading your real file," the instructor said without preamble. "The one that requires Apex-level clearance to access. Do you know what it says?" I-1. "No, Commander. I have never seen my own classified records." "Oh? No. No. Your colony on Earth's moon was destroyed by raiders when you were 6 years old. 347 people died. The coalition response team arrived 4 hours too late." Velshara's scales rippled. They found one survivor, a child who had hidden in the ventilation system and survived by eating emergency rations and drinking recycled water. That child was you. Hana said nothing, her face carefully neutral. Commander Jiwoo Baek was the youngest member of that response team. 22 years old, barely out of her own training. She found you and... Velshara stopped, reading from the file. She took a blood oath in front of 7 coalition witnesses. She swore to protect you, to train you, and to give you the tools to ensure you would never be helpless again. The instructor looked up. That was 12 years ago. 12 years of training from the best warrior in the galaxy. And you came here pretending to be a civilian volunteer. Those were my orders, Hana said quietly. From her? Yes. Velshara leaned back, her arms crossing in a complex pattern that indicated deep thought. Why? Why would the Apex Commander send you here to be mocked and beaten? Why would she let cadets challenge you when a single word from her could have made you untouchable? Because strength that is given means nothing, Hana replied. Strength that is earned means everything. If I came here as her sister, cadets would have feared me or hated me or treated me carefully, but they would never have respected me for who I am. She met Velshara's eyes. I needed to prove I could stand on my own, not in her shadow, but in my own light. And now? Velshara asked. Now everyone knows. That test is over. Now comes the harder test, Hana said. Living with the truth. The change in the academy was immediate and profound. Cadets who had mocked Hana now avoided her entirely, stepping aside in corridors, falling silent when she entered rooms. Those who had challenged her in sanctioned duels approached her with formal apologies, their words stiff with shame and fear. The fear was the worst part. They no longer saw her as weak, but they did not see her as an equal either. They saw her as an extension of the Apex Commander, a threat they could not afford to cross. Squad Theta 7 struggled with the revelation in their own ways. Rix threw himself into training with renewed intensity, as if trying to prove he deserved to stand beside someone with Hana's connections. Other squad members became overly polite, treating her with a careful formality that felt like distance. Even Thexara seemed uncertain how to act around her roommate. Only Gralmoth approached her directly. The massive Vekthar found Hana in the training hall 3 days after the Apex Commander's visit. He stood before her, all 4 arms at his sides, in a posture of submission. I wish to apologize properly, he said. Not because I fear your sister's wrath, but because I wronged you. I judged you by your appearance and your species. I refused to train with you, refused to speak with you, and made our squad weaker because of my prejudice. His scales darkened with shame. You owed me nothing, and yet you saved my life in the breach simulation. That is the mark of a true warrior. I was wrong about humans. I was wrong about you. Hana studied him for a long moment. Do you know why I did not tell you who I was? To test yourself. No. To give you a chance to be better. She stepped closer, looking up at his towering form. If I had arrived as the Apex Commander's sister, you would have treated me with respect out of fear. You would never have shown your true nature, and you would never have had the opportunity to change it. She placed a hand on one of his 4 arms. Your apology means more, because it comes after knowing who I really am. Not before. Growlmoth's scales lightened slightly. You are more generous than I deserve. Perhaps. But generosity is also a kind of strength. Not everyone reacted with apologies. On the 5th day after the revelation, Hana was called to Commander Velshara's office again. This time, the instructor was not alone. Commander Jiwoo Baek sat in the corner, still as a statue, watching with those cold, calculating eyes. We have a situation, Velshara said carefully. Several cadets have filed formal complaints with Academy administration. They claim that your presence here is unfair, that you have received special training that gives you an advantage other cadets do not have. They are demanding your expulsion. 1444. 207. Really did 4. Let me guess, Jiwoo said from the corner, her voice dry. Cadets who challenged her and lost? Among others, yes. Jiwoo stood, moving to stand beside Hana. The contrast between them was striking: the tall, imposing commander, and the small, quiet cadet. And yet, in that moment, they looked remarkably similar. Same determined expression, same calm readiness, same absolute certainty in their own abilities. Those cadets are correct, Jiwoo said. Hana has received special training. Training that would break most adults, let alone a child. I taught her everything I know because I swore an oath to ensure she would never be helpless again. She turned to face Velshara directly. But that training does not make her presence here unfair. Every cadet brings their own advantages. The Vekthar have 4 arms and armored scales. The Draknor have natural weapons and enhanced strength. The Lumen can see in multiple spectrums. Should we expel all of them for having advantages humans lack? That is not the same, Velshara protested weakly. It is exactly the same. Hana's advantage is that she was trained by the best. Their advantage is that they were born strong. Jiwoo's expression hardened. Jiwoo's expression. If they cannot accept that a human can be their equal through dedication and skill, then they are not worthy of serving in the coalition military. Expel them instead. Velshara looked at Hana. Hana had been silent through the exchange. But now she spoke carefully. I think my sister is right about the principle, but I also think forcing people to accept me will not change their minds. She straightened. I request permission to address the cadets who filed complaints directly. Let me answer their objections face to face. Jiwoo's eyebrow raised slightly. You want to confront them? I want to talk with them. There is a difference. The meeting was arranged for that evening in one of the Academy's conference rooms. 20 cadets attended, representing various species and squads. They sat on one side of the long table. Hana sat alone on the other side. Jiwoo and Velshara observed from the back of the room. Silent witnesses. Krosnak, the Draknor who had challenged Hana in her first duel, spoke first. You deceived us. You came here pretending to be weak when you were trained by the Apex Commander herself. That is not honorable. I came here to prove I could succeed on my own merit. Hana replied calmly. If I had announced my connection to Commander Baek on my first day, would any of you have treated me fairly? Or would you have either feared me or hated me for privileges you assumed I would receive? You still should have told us, a Vekthar cadet insisted. Why? So you could adjust your behavior? So you could hide your prejudices instead of revealing them? Hana shook her head. I wanted to know who would judge me for what I could do, not for who I knew. You showed me your true selves. That was the point. But you were trained by the best warrior in the galaxy. Another cadet protested. How can we compete with that? Dumb. By training harder. By learning faster. By adapting better. Hana stood, placing her hands flat on the table. Do you know what Commander Baek's first lesson was? She told me that talent is worthless without work. That natural advantages mean nothing if you rely on them instead of improving them. She trained me hard because she knew the galaxy would not be gentle. And she was right. She looked at each of them in turn. I am small. I am human. I lack the natural advantages most of you were born with. But I worked every day to overcome those disadvantages. I failed more times than I can count. I bled and broke and got back up. Because giving up was not an option. Her voice grew stronger. You think I have an unfair advantage? I think you have unfair advantages. But I do not demand you be expelled because of how you were born. I simply work harder to match you. The room fell silent. Crossneck shifted uncomfortably. You shame us with your words. I do not want to shame you. I want you to understand. Hana sat back down. We are all here to become warriors worthy of the coalition. That means looking past appearances and prejudices. That means respecting the work someone has done, not just the advantages they were born with or the connections they have. She paused. I did not ask for special treatment when I arrived. I do not ask for it now. Judge me by what I do, not by who my sister is. A Lumen cadet, her crystalline body refracting the room's light into rainbow patterns, spoke up. What if we cannot separate the two? What if every time we look at you, we see the Apex Commander's shadow? Then that is your weakness to overcome, not mine. Hana's voice was gentle but firm. I cannot control how you see me. I can only control who I am. From the back of the room, Ji-woo spoke for the first time. She is right. And I will add this, anyone who continues to view Cadet Kim through the lens of her relationship to me, rather than her own accomplishments, is failing a fundamental test of military service. In real combat, you will serve beside warriors from many backgrounds. Some will have advantages you lack. Some will have training you never received. If you cannot accept that and work together anyway, you will get people killed. She stepped forward, her presence dominating the room. My sister has earned her place here. She has defeated every challenge thrown at her. She has protected squad mates who did not deserve her protection. And she has done it all while enduring mockery and abuse with more grace than most of you would show in her position. Her eyes swept the assembled cadets. The question is not whether she belongs here. The question is whether you have learned enough from this experience to deserve to serve beside her. The meeting ended shortly after. Some cadets left looking thoughtful. Others left angry, unable to accept what they had heard. But several approached Hana privately to apologize again, and this time their words carried real understanding rather than just fear. 2 months passed. Training continued with renewed intensity as the class approached graduation. Squad Theta 7 had risen steadily through the rankings, their performance improving dramatically as the squad finally worked as a true unit. Hana no longer hid her abilities, but she also did not flaunt them. She helped weaker squadmates improve, sharing techniques and strategies that the Apex Commander had taught her. She trained with other squads, cross-pollinating skills, and learning from different fighting styles. The final evaluation came in the form of a joint exercise, all squads working together to defend the Academy Station against a simulated invasion force. It was the culmination of everything they had learned, a test of coordination, strategy, and raw combat ability. Squad Theta 7 was assigned to coordinate with Squad Alpha 2, which meant Hana worked directly alongside Crossnock. The Draknor had changed since their first encounter. He fought with more discipline now, less reliance on brute strength, and more focus on technique. When the simulation began, and the enemy force proved overwhelming, he looked to Hana for tactical advice without hesitation. Eastern approach is collapsing, he reported. We need to reinforce or fall back. Hana studied the tactical display. Neither. We collapse the corridor behind us and force them through the northern choke point. Growlmoth's squad can hold there, while we hit them from above. That is risky. If the collapse fails, it will not fail. Trust me. Crossnack looked at her for a long moment, then nodded. I trust you. They executed the plan perfectly. The simulation ended with the defense force victorious and minimal casualties. When the results were posted, Squad Theta 7 ranked 3rd overall, and Squad Alpha 2 ranked 2nd. Hana personally ranked in the top 5% of all cadets across all evaluation categories. Graduation day arrived with ceremony and celebration. 300 cadets had started the program. 212 remained. They stood in perfect formation in the Grand Hall as instructors and coalition officials presented them with their rank insignia and assignments. When Commander Jiwoo Baek stepped forward to present medals to the top graduates, the hall fell silent. She moved down the line, pinning medals on proud chests, offering brief words of congratulation. When she reached Hana, she stopped. No curtsy this time. No public display of their relationship. Instead, Jiwoo Baek straightened to attention and saluted. A crisp, military salute between equal warriors. Hana returned it with the same precision. "You did well, Cadet Kim," Jiwoo said formally, her voice carrying to every corner of the hall. "The coalition is fortunate to have you. Thank you, Commander Baek." Hana's voice was equally formal, but their eyes held a private conversation that words could never capture. Later, after the ceremony, they met privately on one of the station's observation decks. Stars wheeled slowly beyond the transparent aluminum, entire galaxies turning through the darkness. Jiwoo stood with her arms crossed, looking out at the infinite expanse. "I am proud of you," she said quietly. "You proved everything I hoped you would prove. That humans can be strong, that you can be yourself, separate from me." Jiwoo turned to face her. "I gave you the tools, but you built your own path. That is harder than anything I ever taught you." Hana moved to stand beside her sister, and for a moment, they were just two humans looking at the stars. "What happens now?" "Now you receive your assignment. You will serve on a patrol frigate in the outer systems. Real missions, real danger, real opportunity to prove yourself again." Jiwoo smiled slightly. "And I will be on the other side of the galaxy, unable to protect you even if I wanted to." "Good," Hana said. "I do not need protection anymore. I know. But I will worry anyway." That is what sisters do. They stood in comfortable silence for a while. Then Hana asked, "Do you think I changed their minds?" "About humans. I mean, some of them, not all. Prejudice dies slowly." Jiwoo placed a hand on Hana's shoulder. "But you proved something important. You proved that humans may be smaller and weaker in body, but we are not lesser. We endure. We adapt. We overcome. That is our strength. And you showed them that strength exists in many forms. And that is enough? That is everything." Later, Hana returned to her quarters one last time. Thexara was packing her belongings, preparing to leave for her own assignment. The Draknor looked up as Hana entered, and for a moment they simply looked at each other, roommates, squadmates, friends who had traveled a long and difficult road together. "I will miss you." Thexara said simply, "I will miss you too. Do you think we will serve together again? Perhaps. The galaxy is large, but the coalition is smaller than you think." Hana began gathering her own things. "And if not, we will at least have the memory of Squad Theta 7. "The squad everyone mocked," Thexara said with a rough laugh. "The squad. With the human handicap. We showed them. The Academy's Hall of Heroes was a long corridor lined with plaques honoring distinguished graduates and significant achievements. Before leaving, Hana walked through it one last time. At the far end, a new plaque had been installed. She stopped before it, reading the inscription. They judged her by her size and found her weak. They judged her by her actions and found her invincible. Never mistake fragility for weakness, nor size for strength. Humanity endures. Dedicated to Cadet Hana Kim and Squad Theta 7, who proved that warriors come in many forms. Below the inscription were 8 names. Hana traced her own name with one finger, then smiled slightly. Not bad for a fragile human girl. She walked out of the academy station with her head high, ready for whatever came next. Behind her, the Hall of Heroes stood as a testament to a simple truth that the galaxy was slowly learning. Humans might be small. They might be fragile. They might lack the natural advantages of other species. But they possessed something that could not be measured in strength, or speed, or size. They possessed the stubborn, unbreakable determination to survive, to adapt, and to prove that they belonged among the stars. And that made them more dangerous than any of the aliens had ever imagined.